My daughter pointed at the restored muscle car in my driveway and said, "Dad, nobody spends $108,000 at 69 unless he's trying to leave his children nothing." My son stood beside her, nodding as though she had diagnosed an illness. His wife was already calculating what the car would be worth if I died before winter. My daughter's fiancé asked whether the dealership had a return policy. My wife remained near the front door, holding the dish towel she had been using when our children arrived without calling. None of them remembered that I had owned the same model 45 years earlier and sold it to pay hospital bills when my son was born premature. None of them knew I had spent 4 decades promising myself that if I worked hard enough, saved carefully enough, and protected everyone else first, I might someday buy it back. They did know I was still paying my son's mortgage shortage, truck insurance, family phone plan, and 2 of my grandchildren's activity fees. They knew I had already put almost $30,000 toward my daughter's wedding, though I had been seated at the far end of her engagement dinner while she posted a photograph captioned, "The people who have carried us." They knew enough about my accounts to worry about what would remain after I died, but not enough about me to understand why I was still alive. 6 weeks later, at Thanksgiving, they placed a printed family stewardship plan beside my plate and asked me to sell the car, advance their inheritance, and promise not to make any more major purchases without consulting them. I placed a folder beside the turkey containing 25 years of payments, gifts, emergencies, tuition, vehicles, rent, weddings, medical bills, and quiet rescues. The total was $1,487,316. Then I asked them one question: exactly which part of your lives did I have to keep funding before I earned the right to enjoy mine? My name is Raymond Collins, though almost everyone calls me Ray. I was 69 years old when my children decided a car purchased with my own money represented a family emergency. I lived with my wife, Elaine, in Overland Park, Kansas, in a brick 2-story house we bought when our oldest child was 6. The neighborhood was not gated or famous. It had mature maples, sidewalks that buckled near tree roots, basketball hoops over driveways, and neighbors who could tell when someone replaced a roof or stopped mowing regularly. Elaine and I had lived there for 33 years. We raised 2 children inside that house, hosted 27 Thanksgivings, replaced the kitchen twice, refinished the basement after a pipe burst, and watched the maple near the curb grow from a thin sapling into a tree large enough to shade half the front lawn. I worked for 38 years at Mid-America Agricultural Systems, a regional manufacturer of irrigation equipment, grain handling components, and heavy machinery used across Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. I began as a maintenance planner at 25 and retired as director of plant operations. The job was not glamorous. No one asked me to speak at conferences about vision. I kept production lines running, negotiated equipment replacements, managed safety problems, handled vendors, and made sure several hundred employees had a functioning building to enter every morning. I was good at identifying small failures before they became expensive disasters. A worn bearing, a delayed inspection, a supplier quietly lowering quality, a manager avoiding a difficult conversation. At work, I understood that unattended problems rarely disappeared. At home, I spent decades pretending the opposite because the problems were people I loved. My compensation improved gradually. Bonuses grew. Mid-America offered stock incentives during its expansion years. I maxed out retirement contributions, invested every bonus I could, and avoided lifestyle upgrades that would have looked reasonable to anyone earning what I earned. I drove each vehicle until repairs stopped making sense. I wore work boots long after the leather lost its shape. Elaine and I took vacations, but they involved state parks, rented cabins, and road trips rather than luxury resorts. We lived comfortably. We simply did not advertise comfort through expensive objects. The restraint began before our children. When I was 23, I owned a dark green 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS with black racing stripes, a black interior, and an engine loud enough that Elaine could hear me turn onto her street before she saw me. I had purchased it used after working 2 summers and every available weekend. That car was the first beautiful thing I owned that served no practical family purpose. Elaine and I took it on our first trip to Colorado. I proposed beside it near a lookout outside Estes Park, after carrying the ring in my jacket for 3 days because I kept waiting for a moment that felt worthy of her. 2 years later, our son Owen arrived 9 weeks early. He weighed a little over 3 pounds and spent more than a month in a neonatal intensive care unit. Insurance covered most expenses, but not everything. Elaine had stopped working before the delivery. We owed money, needed reliable transportation for hospital visits, and had no meaningful savings. I sold the Chevelle to a mechanic from Wichita. I remember standing in the driveway as he drove away, the engine becoming smaller in the distance. Elaine cried because she knew what the car meant. "We'll buy another someday," she said. Someday, I agreed. Then life filled the calendar. Owen came home. Our daughter Megan was born 4 years later. There were daycare costs, dental work, school supplies, sports, music lessons, college savings, broken furnaces, home repairs, weddings belonging to other relatives, medical deductibles, and every predictable surprise of an ordinary American family. Someday became a private place I visited when I saw a restored Chevelle at a car show or passed one on the highway. I kept photographs in a folder inside my desk. For years, I searched listings late at night and never contacted a seller. Each time, another use for the money appeared. That pattern might sound noble when condensed into a sentence. It did not always feel noble while living it. Sometimes I was proud to provide. Sometimes I resented everyone and said nothing. Sometimes I used sacrifice as proof I was a good man, because admitting I wanted more from life would have required difficult conversations. Elaine knew part of that. "You don't have to make yourself the last item on every list," she told me when I turned 50. "The list is long. It will always be long." She was right. I continued waiting. Owen grew into an intelligent, persuasive, emotionally intense man. As a child, he could convince teachers that missing work reflected confusion rather than avoidance. Coaches loved his confidence. Friends followed him. He was not lazy, he was inconsistent. When bored or embarrassed, he treated obligations like unfair restrictions placed on a person with greater potential. He studied business administration at Kansas State and changed career directions several times after graduation. Medical equipment sales, commercial leasing, solar installations, regional account management. Each job began with excitement and ended after conflict with a manager, changes in commission, unrealistic targets, or an opportunity he said was too important to ignore. Elaine worried constantly. I solved constantly. When his first apartment required a larger security deposit because his credit was thin, I paid it. When a car transmission failed, I covered the repair. When he needed a better suit for client meetings, I bought two. When he married Brooke, a dental hygienist from Olathe, I paid most of the rehearsal dinner and gave them $25,000 toward a house. The house they wanted cost more than their stable income supported. I warned them. Owen said the neighborhood would appreciate faster and that his commission income would grow. Brooke said they wanted children and needed to buy before prices rose. I signed no loan, but I provided the down payment difference that made approval possible. 3 years later, Owen changed jobs, commissions fell, and their monthly budget stopped working. I began transferring $1,100 each month, temporarily, so they would not lose the house. Temporary lasted 6 years. They now had 2 children, Mason and Ellie. I paid their sports registration, orthodontic gap, part of summer camp, and several family trips presented as gifts for the grandchildren. Owen drove a nearly new pickup because clients expected him to arrive professionally. The truck payment came from his account, but I covered the insurance and several repairs. His family remained on my phone plan. Their streaming accounts used my credit card. Their home security monitoring remained attached to a family package I had stopped questioning. None of those charges destroyed my finances. That was how the arrangement survived. If one payment would have ruined me, I would have stopped. Each charge was affordable. Together, they trained my son to experience my support as part of his income. Megan was different and similar in ways she did not recognize. She had been observant and independent as a child, but she also learned that Owen's emergencies could reorder the family. When she needed something, she began presenting it as urgent before anyone could place her second. At 15, she cried because Owen received help buying his first car while she was expected to share Elaine's. I told her Owen needed transportation for work. "So I need a job before I deserve a car?" she asked. I heard jealousy and missed the fairness inside it. We later purchased her a used Honda. She remembered the delay more clearly than the car. Megan studied communications at the University of Missouri and built a career in corporate event marketing. She was organized, stylish, socially intelligent, and skilled at making people feel that attending an event meant entering something important. She lived in a modern apartment near downtown Kansas City, traveled frequently, and maintained a social media presence full of restaurant openings, weekend trips, professional events, and carefully framed family moments. Unlike Owen, she held stable employment, yet her lifestyle consistently exceeded her salary. I covered the difference through smaller channels: her car insurance, phone, gym membership, internet, emergency dental care, furniture financing after a move, a portion of rent during a job transition, and several credit card balances she described as temporary. When she became engaged to Tyler Grant, an architectural photographer, the wedding planning began with a realistic budget and transformed quickly. They wanted an outdoor ceremony at a restored estate near Weston, Missouri. Then came the sailcloth tent, custom lighting, floral ceiling installation, live band, late-night food truck, welcome party, farewell brunch, transportation, photography team, video team, and guest accommodations. Tyler's parents offered $30,000. Elaine and I offered $20,000. Megan called 2 months later crying because the venue required an additional deposit and the photographer's package would increase if they waited. I transferred $6,000, then $4,000 for transportation. Then another amount after the florist threatened to release the date. By the summer I purchased the Chevelle, I had contributed $29,400. Megan called it help from mom and dad. Though Elaine's part came from our shared household and my investments funded the large transfers, I did not need separate recognition. At least, that was what I told myself. The engagement dinner took place at the Weston estate. Tyler's family, our family, wedding party, and several friends attended. I had spent the morning at a specialist appointment with my older brother and arrived 20 minutes late wearing a button-down shirt rather than the navy jacket Megan had suggested. Photographs had already begun. When the photographer called for immediate family, I stepped beside Elaine. Megan's coordinator whispered that she wanted the visually coordinated parent grouping first because Tyler's mother and Elaine were wearing complementary colors. "What am I wearing?" I asked. The coordinator laughed as though I were joking. "We'll add Dad's after." Tyler's father joined because his tan jacket fit the color palette. I stood near the edge holding Elaine's purse. Several photographs were taken. Then the light shifted, the couple needed portraits, and guests moved toward dinner. No second parent photograph happened. The next morning, Megan posted an image of herself and Tyler, between both mother's and Tyler's father. Caption: "The people carrying us into our next chapter." I was not in the frame. Owen commented, "Family first." Elaine called Megan and asked whether there were photographs with me. "Dad hates pictures," Megan said. I did not hate pictures. I hated asking to be included after people had already revealed where they placed me. When Elaine told her that, Megan became defensive. It wasn't personal. Dad always acts like money and effort should make him the center of everything. I heard about the comment from Elaine. It hurt because I had done the opposite publicly. I had never announced what I paid. I had never interrupted her wedding planning to describe sacrifice. Yet somewhere inside Megan, my financial role had become large enough that any emotional need from me felt like collecting interest. That same month, I found the Chevelle. A collector outside Wichita was selling a fully restored 1970 SS 454. Forest green, black stripes, black bucket seats, 4-speed transmission. Not identical to my first car, but close enough that seeing the listing changed my breathing. I drove down alone on a Tuesday. The owner opened the garage, pulled away a cover, and there it was beneath clean white lights. I walked around it twice without speaking. "You know these cars?" he asked. I knew one. He handed me the keys. I sat behind the wheel and placed both hands on it. For a moment, I was 23 again. Elaine in the passenger seat. The open road west, a future not yet crowded with obligations. Then I was 69, sitting inside someone else's garage, realizing I had enough money, good health, and no guarantee that someday would remain available. The price was $108,000. I had set aside a personal discretionary account years earlier, separate from household expenses and retirement security. The purchase represented less than 3% of our investable assets. Elaine's retirement, our home, medical reserves, and long-term plans were secure. I did not need to sell investments needed for care. I did not need to borrow. This was not financial recklessness. It was emotionally extravagant, and that frightened me more. I called Elaine from the garage. I found it. She knew immediately. "The car? The car. Do you love it?" "Yes." Can we afford it? Easily. Then bring it home. You're sure? Ray, I have been sure since you sold the first one. I paid cash and drove north. The engine vibrated through the seat. People looked over at gas stations. At one stop, a man around 30 asked whether it had been in my family. In a way, I said. When I reached our street, I parked in the driveway and turned off the engine. Elaine came outside. She placed one hand over her mouth and began crying before reaching me. It looks like it, she said. Almost. You look like yourself. I laughed. What does that mean? I don't know. You look happy without needing anyone else to approve it. We drove that evening with the windows down, though Kansas heat still hung in the air. Elaine wore sunglasses and tied a scarf over her hair as a joke. We ate burgers at a roadside place outside Lawrence. Nobody asked us to pay a bill, solve a problem, or rearrange a weekend. I felt guilty twice during dinner. Each time, Elaine said, "Stop calculating." The children discovered the car 4 days later. Megan arrived unexpectedly Saturday morning to borrow serving trays for a bridal shower. She stopped behind the Chevelle and remained in her car for almost a minute. I stood on the porch with coffee. Morning. She got out slowly. Whose car is that? Mine. No, seriously. Seriously. She walked around it. You bought a classic car? I did. When? Tuesday. How much? The question arrived before congratulations. 108,000. She stared. Dad, it's beautiful, isn't it? That is insane. The word removed some of the joy immediately. We can afford it. Who is we? Your mother and me. Does Mom know? Elaine stepped onto the porch. I told him to buy it. Megan looked between us. You both think this is okay? It is our money, Elaine said. You're planning retirement, Megan replied. We are retired, I said. Exactly. You should be protecting assets. They are protected. This isn't about whether you had cash sitting somewhere. It's about priorities. I studied her. Which priority did I fail? The wedding, for one. I have already contributed almost $30,000. And the final invoices are coming. Then adjust the final invoices. Her face tightened. I knew this was partly about the wedding. The car existed before your wedding. No, Dad. The money did. She entered the house, collected the trays, and left without drinking coffee. I saw her calling someone before reaching the corner. Owen arrived the next morning with Brooke and Megan. Tyler came too. No one had asked permission. Elaine saw the 4 cars and whispered. They held a meeting. We sat in the living room. Owen leaned forward with his hands together. Dad, we need to talk about the Chevelle. I assumed. This is not about controlling you. Good. It's about making sure you're making sound decisions. I almost smiled. Based on what? You spent over $100,000 on a toy. A collectible automobile. A toy, Megan repeated. Tyler said, from an outside perspective, the resale market can be volatile. Thank you, Tyler. He looked uncertain whether I was sincere. Brooke spoke gently. We're worried about long-term care. Medical costs can be enormous. We have insurance, reserves, and long-term care coverage. Owen said, things happen. They do. What if you need the money later? Then I own an asset I can sell. You'll lose fees and value. Possibly. Megan folded her arms. This isn't how you raised us. How did I raise you? To be responsible. I paid cash after saving for 45 years. You are intentionally missing the point. Then state it clearly. No one answered immediately. Elaine stood near the doorway. I watched my children look toward each other, each hoping someone else would say the ugly sentence. Megan finally did. You're spending money that was supposed to stay in the family. The room became quiet. It is in the family, I said. I am driving it, Dad. No. Explain whose money you believe I spent. Owen rubbed his hands together. We're talking about legacy. My legacy is not an account balance. Nobody said it was. You arrived as a group because I purchased one thing for myself. Brooke said, it is a very expensive thing. So was Owen's house. Owen looked up. That's different. How? You helped us establish a family. And Megan's wedding? That's a major life event, Megan said. Buying the car was a major life event for me. She laughed once. A car cannot be compared to a marriage. Correct. The car may last longer. Elaine made a sound that was almost a cough. Tyler looked offended. Megan stood. This is exactly what I mean. You're acting impulsive and childish. I remained seated. Sit down or leave. She sat. Owen lowered his voice. Dad, we love you. But yes, we are concerned that you may start living too large now that you're retired. Living too large. You know what I mean. No. Explain. The car. Trips. Expensive dinners. You've been talking about renovating the basement workshop. Your mother and I took one weekend trip to Bentonville. That's how it starts. I looked toward Elaine. She appeared hurt on my behalf and afraid of conflict at the same time. Megan said, "We just don't want you to wake up at 85 and realize you spent everything. What if I die at 70? That stopped them. Dad, don't say that, Owen replied. Why? Death is the reason you're discussing inheritance while I'm sitting here. That's not fair. Neither is arriving at my home to audit a purchase you did not fund. Brooke said, no one is auditing you. You asked the price, resale risk, medical reserves, and whether my wife approved. Megan's voice sharpened. Fine. We're worried you're going to leave us nothing. There it was, direct, clean. Thank you, I said. For what? For finally speaking honestly. Elaine stepped forward. Your father has provided more than you realize. Owen said, Mom, this is not about whether Dad has helped. It should be, she replied, because both of you are behaving as though everything he earned begins belonging to you the moment he stops needing it. Megan looked wounded. That is not what we believe. Then celebrate that he bought something he has wanted since before you were born. Mom, you're enabling him. Elaine's face changed. I am his wife. Exactly. You should be protecting both of you. I raised one hand. Enough. They looked at me. You are right about one thing. I have too many payments going out. I have allowed spending to become automatic. I will reduce it. Relief moved visibly through the room. Owen nodded. Good. Megan exhaled. Thank you. The car remains. Dad, she began, the conversation is over. They stayed for lunch. They laughed more easily because they believed they had prevented a larger problem. Megan discussed floral samples. Owen asked whether I could attend Mason's baseball tournament the following weekend. Brooke thanked Elaine for dessert. Tyler took one photograph of the Chevelle and said the lighting was nice. Before leaving, Megan hugged me. We only said something because we care. I hugged her back. I know why you said it. That evening, after Elaine went upstairs, I entered my office and opened our financial dashboard. I did not act impulsively. I spent 3 hours reviewing every recurring payment connected directly or indirectly to Owen and Megan. 37 active items, phone lines, streaming services, auto insurance, security systems, internet, gym membership, mortgage supplement, subscription deliveries, youth sports fees, college savings contributions above what Elaine and I had deliberately established, wedding installments, car maintenance plans, medical copays, storage unit, a credit card payment arrangement, a professional software subscription Owen used for a consulting side business. Over the next week, I separated true gifts from permanent dependency. I did not cancel my grandchildren's health-related expenses or education accounts. Children would not become collateral damage in an argument with adults. I did not demand repayment for past gifts. I did not threaten anyone's home without notice. I stopped future automatic support and created written end dates where sudden cancellation could cause practical harm. Owen's mortgage supplement would stop in 60 days. His truck insurance ended at renewal. The family phone lines would transfer to each adult after 30 days. Megan's apartment, internet, gym, car insurance, and subscriptions would end at the next billing cycle. I paid the wedding obligations I had already explicitly promised and canceled every optional amount she had assumed I would cover. I transferred responsibility carefully. Organization prevented anger from becoming cruelty. Elaine found me in the office near midnight on the 4th evening. What are you doing? I showed her the list. Her eyes moved down the page. All of this? All of it. Some of these are small. That is how they became invisible. Megan needs internet for work. She has a salary. Owen's mortgage? He has 60 days. The grandchildren's activities? We will complete the current seasons. After that, their parents decide what fits. Elaine sat beside me. Are you punishing them? Partly. I did not want to lie. I'm angry. I know. But I'm also correcting something we should have corrected years ago. We? Yes. You softened every request. I paid every request. We taught them that love arrived as maintenance. Tears entered her eyes. I only wanted them secure. So did I. What if they struggle? They will. What if they blame us? They will. What if they stop coming? That was the real fear. Elaine had built motherhood around being available. Empty calendars frightened her more than unpaid bills. Then we will learn whether the relationship exists without the money. She looked toward the spreadsheet. I don't know if I'm ready to learn that. Neither am I. She rested her head against my shoulder. Do not become cruel. Stop me if I do. I will. Good. The first cancellation Owen noticed was the truck insurance. His broker emailed that automatic renewal failed because the payment method had been removed. He called on a Tuesday morning. Dad, did your card change? No. My insurance renewal isn't going through. You need to add your payment information. Silence. Why? Because it is your truck. You've paid the policy for years. Correct. So this is about the car argument. This is about reducing expenses. Dad, come on. You told me I was living too large. I meant your spending. Insurance on your truck is my spending. That is completely different. How? He could not explain without admitting that money spent on him remained acceptable. I need the truck for work. Then it belongs in your work budget. Renewal is due Friday. You have 3 days. This is unbelievably petty. Then demonstrate maturity by handling it without calling your father. I ended the call. Megan noticed 3 days later when her gym membership failed. Then 2 streaming services stopped. Then the internet provider informed her that the promotional family account would close unless she established a new plan. She called Elaine first. I heard my wife speaking softly in the kitchen. Your father is transferring adult expenses. Pause. I understand you work from home. Pause. No. I cannot put it on my card without discussing it with him. Pause. Elaine closed her eyes. Megan, $70 a month is not abandonment. She ended the call and stood very still. She said we're using money to control her. We use money to protect her. She experienced protection and control as the same thing because neither required independence. That sounds like therapy language. It sounds accurate. She was crying. Did she set up internet? Yes. Then the problem was solvable. Owen's mortgage supplement ended 2 months later. He had received written notice. On the first month without the transfer, he called 3 times and sent a spreadsheet showing his family budget. There is a deficit, he said. I see that. What are we supposed to cut? That is a conversation between you and Brooke. The children's school? They attend public school. Activities, childcare, groceries. I am not choosing which parts of your life matter. You helped us buy this house. I helped with the down payment. I warned the monthly cost was too high. So now you want us to sell? I want you to choose. We built our lives around this support. That is the problem. He became quiet. You never said it would stop. I should have. So this is your fault too. The accusation was partly true. Yes, he had expected denial. What? I made temporary support permanent because saying no felt worse than paying. That damaged both of us. Then don't correct your mistake by destroying my family. Selling a house you cannot afford is not destroying your family. He hung up. The children's visits changed. For the first month, they disappeared except for brief calls to Elaine. Then a family rumor reached them that I had met with an estate planner. My younger brother had mentioned it to his wife, who mentioned it to a cousin, who mentioned it to Megan. Suddenly, both children became attentive. Owen brought coffee beans from a local roaster. Megan arrived with lemon bars from my favorite bakery. They asked about my health. They asked whether I wanted to attend a concert. They asked whether the Chevelle needed special storage. Megan offered to photograph it professionally for insurance documentation. I accepted the visits without commenting on their timing. Elaine noticed too. One evening after they left, she said, maybe the money scare made them appreciate you. Maybe. You don't believe it. I believe fear improved their calendars. That doesn't mean the affection is fake. No, it means we need time to see whether it survives disappointment. Thanksgiving became the test because Megan decided it should also serve as a family financial meeting. She and Tyler's wedding was 4 months away. Owen and Brooke had listed their house after finally accepting the budget could not support it. They received an offer lower than they wanted. Both children believed my choices had created instability at exactly the wrong moment. Elaine wanted to host Thanksgiving. because she feared separate holidays would become permanent. I agreed under one condition: no financial documents at the table. Everyone agreed. They brought documents anyway. 22 people attended: Owen, Brooke, Mason, Ellie, Megan, Tyler, my brother Paul and his wife, Elaine's sister, several nieces and nephews, and 2 longtime family friends. Elaine cooked turkey and stuffing. I handled mashed potatoes and carved the meat. The Chevelle sat beneath a fitted cover inside the garage. Megan asked whether guests could see it after dinner. Maybe. She smiled as though that meant healing. Social media photographs began before anyone sat. Megan arranged Elaine beside the turkey, the grandchildren near the fireplace, and Owen with the wine. I remained in the kitchen carrying pans. When I entered, she said, "Dad, stand at the end." "Why?" "The light is balanced." I stood at the end. Later, she posted a photograph captioned, "Grateful for the family that stays through every season." Nobody online knew she had spent the previous week asking whether I would advance another $15,000 for wedding vendors. During dinner, conversation remained polite. Owen discussed moving to a smaller home. Brooke mentioned returning to full-time work. Megan said she and Tyler had reduced one floral installation but still needed to finalize transportation. Paul complimented the Chevelle. "I thought Ray would die before buying something fun," he joked. Owen said, "That's what we're trying to prevent." Several people laughed because they did not understand. After dessert, Megan placed a folder beside my plate. "We know you said no financial discussion." "Then remove the folder. Please hear us first." Owen placed a second copy near Elaine. "This is not hostile." The first page read, "Collins Family Stewardship Plan." Tyler had designed it professionally. The language sounded compassionate. Major purchases above $25,000 would be discussed with both adult children. I would sell the Chevelle within 6 months, unless its value increased enough to justify retention. Elaine and I would create annual financial summaries to reduce family anxiety. Owen would receive an early inheritance advance to stabilize his housing transition. Megan would receive a matching advance so the arrangement remained equal and the wedding could proceed without last-minute compromises. The remaining estate would be preserved through conservative investments, with Owen and Megan serving in advisory roles. "Advisory roles," I repeated. Megan said, "You don't have to agree to every point." "Then why are signature lines included?" "To show shared commitment, shared control." Owen leaned forward. "Dad, the last few months have been brutal." "I know. We had systems. You changed them overnight." "With notice, not emotionally. Money does not require an emotional transition before it stops being yours." Brooke said, "We are not claiming it belongs to us. The plan asks for advances from an inheritance available only after my death." Megan's eyes filled. "Why do you keep making it sound ugly?" "Because the polite wording cannot change the transaction." Tyler spoke carefully. "From a planning perspective, intergenerational transfers can be more useful while recipients are younger. From a photography perspective, do you usually invoice the dead before the funeral?" Megan slammed one hand onto the table. "That is cruel. So is treating my life expectancy as a timing problem." Elaine whispered, "Ray." I looked at her. She was frightened, but not asking me to surrender. "I have something too," I said. I went to my office and returned with a thick folder. I placed it on the table beside their plan. "What is that?" Owen asked. Context. The first pages contain summaries rather than every receipt. Education, housing, transportation, healthcare, weddings, monthly expenses, business support, grandchildren. I slid one copy to Owen and one to Megan. The numbers are approximate because I excluded ordinary birthday and Christmas gifts. They began reading. Owen's face changed first. Megan's hands became still. The total appeared on the third page: $1,487,316 across 25 years, including college, vehicles, home support, living expenses, wedding contributions, business emergencies, insurance, family trips, medical costs, and recurring payments. It did not include projected inheritances, grandchildren's education accounts, or the value of time Elaine and I spent caring for children. Megan whispered, "This cannot be right." "It is conservative." Owen turned pages. "The house amount includes the down payment and 72 months of mortgage support." Brooke looked at him. 72? I thought it was 5 years, she said. It became 6. Why didn't you tell me? We didn't discuss every transfer. Exactly, I said. Owen glared. This is between Brooke and me. Then the support should have been between Brooke and you. Megan was reading her section. You included my car after college. I bought it. That was a graduation gift. It is listed as a gift. Then why include it? Because you said I was leaving you nothing. Tears entered her eyes. I said I was worried. You said my money was supposed to remain in the family. You are using every generous thing you did as a weapon. No, I am using history to correct the claim that I have neglected your future. The room had become silent beyond our table. Relatives tried not to stare. I had not planned a public accounting, but my children had brought a public plan. Which line was living too large, I asked. Neither answered. Which part of the $1.5 million was irresponsible generosity? Owen closed the folder. Nobody asked you to do all of this. Elaine inhaled sharply. That sentence hurt her more than me because she remembered each crisis. You asked many times, I said. Maybe not for the full system. You asked for each step. You chose to say yes. Correct. So stop acting like victims. I looked at him. I am not a victim. I am responsible for creating adults who believed asking and receiving were unrelated to gratitude. Megan said, you always worked. Money was how you showed love. That sentence struck deeper than her accusation about the car, because it contained truth. Explain, I said. You missed things. What things? My sophomore awards dinner, 2 dance recitals. The college orientation weekend, because the plant had an equipment failure, you sent money. You always sent money. When I wanted you, you solved a bill. Her voice broke. Then years later, when I asked for money, you acted like I was using you. That was the relationship you built. Elaine looked at me. I remembered the awards dinner. I had arrived after dessert and handed Megan an envelope for a summer program. At the time, I believed the envelope proved commitment. You're right, I said. Megan stopped crying for a moment. What? I used providing as an excuse for absence. I told myself work was love because work produced security. Sometimes I offered money because sitting inside disappointment felt harder. Owen laughed bitterly. So this is your fault. Partly. He had expected either total blame or total denial. But my failures as a father do not create permanent access to my accounts. I owe apologies for absence. I do not owe lifetime financial dependence as compensation. Owen stood. Convenient distinction. Necessary distinction. You're saying you damaged us and now we pay for the correction. You are 41, Megan is 34. At some point, understanding the past must become building the future. Megan said, you could help and still have the car. I have helped. The question is whether help can ever end without becoming betrayal. Tyler looked at the ledger. What happens to the estate now? Elaine closed her eyes. He realized too late how the question sounded. There is a new plan, I said. The grandchildren's educational accounts remain protected. Elaine is fully provided for. A portion will support scholarships for technical training and emergency assistance for families of Mid-America employees. Owen and Megan will each receive a modest inheritance directly, not control of the investments or automatic access to everything. Megan stared. Modest? Enough to be meaningful, not enough to become your retirement strategy. How much? That is private. We are your children. Correct. So you won't tell us? Correct. Owen's face hardened. You have been planning this for months, since June. Because we criticized the car. Because you revealed your expectation. You're cutting us out. No. I am separating love from financial succession. Megan pushed the stewardship plan away. This is revenge. Partly, at first, I admitted. The honesty surprised her. The first night, I wanted you both to feel every cancellation. I wanted the truck notice, the internet failure, the streaming passwords, and the mortgage gap to make you panic. I wanted you to understand what I had provided by experiencing its absence. Elaine looked toward me. We had discussed this privately. That anger got me moving, I continued. But I did not cancel the grandchildren's health care or demand repayment. I gave notice where housing was involved. I completed promises already made. Then I kept the boundary because the system was unhealthy, even after my anger cooled. Owen shook his head. You still enjoyed it. Sometimes. That's sick. Perhaps. But my imperfect emotions do not make your entitlement healthy. Brooke spoke for the first time in several minutes. Ray, I did not know the full amount. I believe you. She looked at Owen. Why didn't I know your father paid part of the mortgage every month? Because you knew money came in. You said it was from consulting. Owen looked away. A new betrayal had entered their marriage. We will discuss that at home, Brooke said. Megan looked at Tyler. You knew Dad had paid wedding vendors. Some. Not all. Your mother handled several calls. Elaine's face tightened. I handled calls because you both sent panic through me until I carried it to Ray. Megan said, Mom, we never forced you. Elaine's voice became firmer than I had heard in years. You did not need to force me. You knew I feared disappointing you. You called crying, then I called your father. He became the person who said yes or no while I remained the comforting parent. I helped create this too. So now everyone blames us? Megan asked. No, Elaine said. We are finally naming everyone's part. Owen picked up his coat. I'm done. Brooke remained seated. Sit down. He stared at her. We are not leaving before you explain the mortgage transfers. Not here. Your father just explained 25 years in front of everyone because you brought a plan to control his spending. You can explain 6 years. Owen's anger shifted toward humiliation. I did what I had to do for our family. You let me believe your commission work covered the deficit. I was trying to protect you from stress. I almost laughed at the familiar phrase. Brooke did not. You protected yourself from admitting the house was unaffordable. Owen sat down again. No one finished the Thanksgiving conversation neatly. Real families do not produce one confession that resolves every wound. Megan cried. Tyler apologized for the financial plan, but defended the idea that adult children should understand estate intentions. Elaine said intention did not require approval. Owen remained angry. Brooke asked practical questions. My brother Paul told Owen he had never received comparable help from our parents and had still built a life. Owen accused him of enjoying the conflict. The grandchildren watched a movie in the basement, protected from most of the adult conversation. Eventually, I closed both folders. Here is the boundary, I said. No recurring payments resume. No inheritance advances. No consultation rights over our spending. The Chevelle remains. The wedding receives only the amount already promised. The grandchildren's education and legitimate emergencies remain something Elaine and I may choose to support directly. Choose is the important word. There will be no punishment for building independent lives. There will also be no reward for remaining dependent. Megan wiped her face. Do you still love us? Yes. Then why does this feel like abandonment? Because money has been part of the relationship for so long that its removal feels like my removal. Isn't it? I am here. Dinner, calls, birthdays, advice, hospital visits, ordinary help. I am ending automatic funding, not fatherhood. Owen said, easy to say when you have all the power. I have control of my own money. That should not be described as power over you unless your plans require it. Megan whispered, I don't know how to have the wedding now. Have the wedding you can afford, guests already booked travel. Then marry the man you love in front of the people who come. The ceiling flowers are not the marriage. Tyler looked at her. Something private passed between them. They left 2 hours later. No doors slammed. Owen and Brooke drove separately because she wanted space. Megan hugged Elaine, but not me. Tyler shook my hand. I still think the conversation could have been handled privately, he said. Then do not bring signature pages to Thanksgiving. He nodded. Fair. Do not say fair because it ends discomfort. He almost smiled despite everything. After the house emptied, Elaine sat at the kitchen table and cried. I don't know what happens now. I placed my hand over hers. Neither do I. You always act like you know. That may be part of what damaged everyone. She looked at me. Do you regret the folder? No. The trust? No. The cancellations? Some of the pleasure I took in them. And the car? Never. She laughed through tears. Good. The months after Thanksgiving were difficult. Owen and Brooke sold their house and moved into a smaller 3-bedroom place in Olathe. The sale covered most obligations, but not every cost. Brooke returned to full-time work. Owen accepted a salaried sales management position after years of prioritizing commission opportunities with higher upside and less stability. He resented the job initially. A manager reviewed his performance. Vacation days required approval. The company vehicle was practical rather than impressive. Yet the paycheck arrived consistently. For the first time in years, his household budget could be built without my transfer. Their marriage entered counseling after Brooke learned how much financial information he had hidden. I did not pay for counseling. Their insurance covered most of it. When Owen called once to complain about the copay, I remained silent until he hurt himself. Right, he said. Not your job. Correct. I hate saying that. Practice. Megan and Tyler reduced the wedding dramatically. They canceled the floral ceiling, late-night food truck, custom lounge furniture, farewell brunch, and premium transportation. The guest list dropped from 210 to 118. Megan initially told friends the changes happened because family financial promises suddenly shifted. Camille, no. Tyler asked her to stop presenting our boundary as a broken promise because I had completed every amount clearly promised. They argued. For 2 weeks, Megan posted, quote, graphics about people revealing themselves when money enters relationships. One extended relative commented, didn't your father already pay almost $30,000? The post disappeared. I did not respond publicly. The wedding took place in April. For several months, I did not know whether I was invited. Elaine received bridal shower details. Mine did not include me, obviously, but the family rehearsal invitation also failed to arrive. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Megan came to our house alone. She looked exhausted. I don't know where to seat you. At a table. That isn't what I mean. I know. Tyler thinks you should be at the family table. And you. Part of me wants you there. Part of me looks at you and sees everything we had to cancel. Then perhaps I should not attend. Tears entered her eyes. You would miss my wedding? I miss parts of your childhood while telling myself money made up for it. I will not attend your wedding as another financial symbol. I want my dad there. Then invite your dad, not your budget, she cried. I'm trying, I know. Will you come if I ask? Yes. Without making a speech about money? Absolutely. Without driving the Chevelle? I almost laughed. Why? The photographers will make it a thing. I can drive Elaine's car. She nodded, embarrassed. Thank you. Megan. What? I am allowed to own a beautiful car, even if it does not appear at your wedding. I know. Do you? She thought. Not fully yet. I attended. The wedding was smaller and better than the original plan. Rain moved the ceremony indoors, where guests stood close beneath warm lights. Megan wore a simple dress after selling the first designer gown through consignment. Tyler's photographs focused on faces rather than installations. I sat beside Elaine at the family table. No one announced what I had paid. During parent photographs, Megan called both fathers first. Dad, she said, looking directly at me, stand beside me. The image eventually became one of my favorites. Not because it erased the engagement photograph, because she had made a different choice while still angry. During the reception, she danced with me to an old James Taylor song. Halfway through, she whispered, I'm still mad at you. I know. I'm glad you came. Me too. The wedding is beautiful. It is. I thought losing the expensive parts would make it feel like failure. Does it? She looked around at Tyler laughing with friends, Elaine speaking with his mother, children dancing without rhythm. No. That realization belonged to her. I did not turn it into a lesson aloud. Owen did not speak to me for nearly 5 months after Thanksgiving, except for necessary family information. Elaine met him for lunch. I did not prevent it. He needed a relationship with his mother separate from me. She respected my boundary and stopped carrying requests. When Owen called again, it was after Mason broke his wrist at baseball practice. He's okay, Owen said immediately. Insurance covers it. I'm not calling about money. Thank you. He asked whether Grandpa would sign his cast. Of course. We visited the next evening. Owen remained distant but polite. Mason showed me the cast and asked whether the Chevelle was fast. Fast enough. Dad says it caused a family crisis. Owen closed his eyes. I said it was involved. The car did not cause the crisis, I told Mason. Adults disagreed about money. Can I ride in it? When your arm heals. Owen looked at me. The promise created no payment, no rescue, no leverage, just time together. That distinction became part of our rebuilding. The estate plan remained. I did not use inheritance conditions as a behavioral control system with complicated employment tests or moral requirements. After discussing it with Elaine and our advisor, we chose something simpler. Elaine would remain fully protected. Each grandchild had education and medical funds managed independently. Owen and Megan would receive equal, meaningful, but limited amounts after both Elaine and I were gone. The majority of the remaining investments would establish a scholarship for technical training, support emergency needs for retired Mid-America employees, and fund caregiver respite programs. I did not announce exact amounts. I did not threaten to reduce shares after arguments. Once created, the plan stopped being a weapon. My children knew no financial performance would restore the original expectation. They also knew disagreement would not erase the modest gifts. The boundary became boring, which meant it was becoming healthy. Elaine and I began spending more deliberately. Not recklessly, deliberately. We drove the Chevelle on weekend trips to small towns across Kansas and Missouri. We joined a classic car club filled with retired teachers, mechanics, farmers, nurses, and business owners who had spent decades postponing something. One man owned the Camaro his wife had sold during his military deployment. Another woman had restored her father's 1956 Ford after inheriting boxes of parts. People approached the Chevelle at shows and told me their own stories. The car stopped representing revenge. It became a place where Elaine and I sat beside memories without allowing them to become obligations. We visited Colorado in it on our 46th anniversary. At the same overlook where I had proposed, Elaine stood beside the car and said, "You took a long time keeping that promise." Life happened. Life always happens. We took one photograph. She asked before posting it. Caption, "Some dreams survive because they wait patiently. Others survive because we finally stop asking permission." Megan liked the photograph. Owen did not react. That was fine. My own accountability became harder after the financial confrontation ended. Therapy was Elaine's suggestion. I resisted because I believed the problem was obvious. Adult children became entitled. Our therapist, Dr. Samuel Reed, asked what I received from providing so much. "Nothing," I said. "That is rarely true. I received family stability." "What else?" "Respect." "Did your children respect you?" I became defensive. "They loved me." "What else did providing prevent?" I looked toward Elaine. She answered softly. "Conflict." Dr. Reed nodded. "Money can become the fastest method of ending discomfort. Someone is upset. Ray pays. Elaine becomes relieved. The child becomes grateful. Nobody discusses why the need keeps returning. I hated the accuracy. I had presented myself as the silent provider, while quietly enjoying the authority of being indispensable. I rarely asked the children to understand our budget, because understanding might create disagreement. I simply solved the problem, then resented them for not appreciating information I had hidden. That did not excuse their inheritance conversation. It explained how the entitlement grew without correction. "You made money the language of love," Megan told me during a later family session, then became angry that we spoke it. "Yes," I said, "that was my failure. So why not keep helping while we learn something different?" "Because a new language requires us to stop using the old one." She hated that answer. Months later, she said it had been right. Owen's path remained harder. Losing financial support threatened not only his lifestyle, but his identity as a capable provider. He blamed me longer because admitting dependence required reinterpreting much of adulthood. During our first private conversation, almost a year after Thanksgiving, he said, "Every time I thought I was succeeding, you were beneath it." Sometimes. The house, the truck, trips, the kids' activities. Yes? Why didn't you tell me? "Because I like being the person who could fix things." "Then you let me believe I was better at life than I was." "Yes." His eyes filled with anger. "That is humiliating." "I know. And then you exposed it at Thanksgiving. You brought a plan asking for more. You could have spoken privately. I should have shown you the complete picture years earlier." "That's not an apology for Thanksgiving." "I am sorry the ledger became public beyond the people who brought the plan. I am not sorry you saw it." He looked away. "I still think the car is ridiculous." "That is allowed. Do you care what I think?" "About cars? Not especially." He almost smiled. "Do you care about me?" "Yes. Even if I never become the son you want? I need you to stop being the son whose success I purchase. The rest is yours." We did not hug. Repair began with coffee and uncomfortable sentences. Owen gradually became reliable at work. The salaried position he initially despised led to a regional management role after 3 years. He discovered that consistency created reputation more effectively than charisma alone. Brooke continued working. They remained in the smaller house and eventually admitted they preferred the lower stress. The children changed activities based on interest rather than maintaining every program. Mason chose baseball and dropped travel basketball. Ellie continued dance but attended a less expensive studio. Their childhood did not collapse. Once Owen said, "I thought giving them everything was what a good father did." "I wonder where you learned that." He laughed without humor. "Apparently, the family business. We can retire from it." Megan and Tyler delayed buying a house until they had a down payment that belonged to them. She received a promotion and reduced social media spending after realizing how often lifestyle content created expenses she described as professional necessity. She never stopped enjoying beautiful things. Independence did not require becoming aesthetically miserable. It required paying for the life she curated. When she and Tyler later purchased a modest ranch house, they invited us to dinner. No request for furniture, no expectation of a closing gift. Elaine and I gave them a framed wedding photograph and a small garden tree. "Is this all?" Megan joked, then immediately looked frightened that the joke sounded entitled. "It is a tree," I said seriously. "Very valuable in 40 years. We laughed. The old tension did not disappear. It became safe enough for humor. Brooke apologized years later for joining the first intervention. "I was afraid," she said. "I knew our budget depended on support. When Owen said you had spent over $100,000 on a car, I saw our mortgage disappearing. That fear was accurate. Yes, I called it concern for your retirement because that sounded less selfish. Thank you for saying it. Do you forgive me?" "Yes." "Does that change the estate?" "No," she laughed. Good answer. Forgiveness without financial consequence became a new family skill. Elaine's role changed most quietly. She had spent years serving as the bridge through which requests reached me. Children cried to Mom. Mom approached Dad. Dad paid. Mom remained emotionally safe to everyone. After the boundary, she had to tolerate being disappointed in. Megan once told her, "You chose Dad over your children." Elaine replied, "I chose my marriage over a financial arrangement that was damaging all of us." Then she cried after the call. Choosing correctly did not make it painless. She began having lunches with the children that excluded financial discussion. When either child asked her to pressure me, she ended the conversation. "Talk to your father directly," she said, "and accept his answer." Over time, they developed relationships with her, not centered on obtaining my agreement. That mattered because Elaine deserved to be more than the gentle entrance to my wallet. 5 years after the car argument, Mid-America invited me to speak at a retirement workshop. I refused at first because I disliked giving advice about money after nearly allowing my own family system to collapse around it. The organizer said, "That may be exactly why you should speak." I agreed to one session. I discussed retirement identity, adult children, hidden support, and the difference between generosity and dependency. I told them about the Chevelle without naming my children. "The purchase did not create entitlement," I said. "It revealed expectations nobody had spoken aloud." Afterward, 3 men and 2 women stayed behind. One woman said she was paying her 40-year-old son's rent while delaying dental surgery. A man said his daughter monitored his vacations because she expected to inherit the farm. Another admitted he gave money because it guaranteed Sunday calls. "What happens if I stop and they stop calling?" he asked. "Then you learn what the calls contained," I said. "That sounds terrible." "It may be, but paying to avoid truth does not create a better truth." I understood his fear because it had been mine. The Chevelle became less important as an object and more important as a reminder that my life remained present tense. I maintained it carefully, drove it responsibly, and refused several profitable offers. When Mason turned 16, I taught him to drive the car in an empty church parking lot. Owen stood nearby looking nervous. "You trust him with that?" he asked. "I trust him with supervision." Mason stalled twice, laughed, and tried again. Afterward, Owen rested one hand on the roof. "I get it more now." "The car?" "Why it mattered." "What changed?" "I found an old photograph of you and Mom beside the first one. You look younger than Megan is now." I was. "I always thought Dad began when I was born." The sentence captured something children often forget. Parents existed before parenthood. Dreams, identities, relationships, mistakes, and unfinished promises did not begin with a child, even if family life reorganized everything afterward. "I sold it because you were sick," I said. "I know. I never regretted paying the hospital bills." "But you missed the car." "Both can be true. He nodded. I'm sorry I called the new one a toy. It is partly a toy. An expensive one. Correct. Still ridiculous. You may walk home. He laughed. We drove back together. My relationship with Megan became warmer than before because she began telling me emotional needs without attaching invoices. I want you at dinner, she would say, rather than inventing a household project that required my help. The first time she called simply to ask about my week, I became suspicious. What do you need? Nothing. Is Tyler okay? Yes. Car problem? No. Then why are you calling? Silence. Dad, that question is depressing. She was right. I'm sorry. I'm calling because I saw a green Chevelle at a light and thought of you. We spoke for 20 minutes. No money moved. The relationship existed anyway. Owen took longer, but became more direct. When he lost a major client, he called. I'm not asking for financial help, he said. I need to tell someone I feel like a failure. We spoke about fear, work, and the pressure he placed on himself. I did not solve the client problem. 2 weeks later, he won another account. See, I said, you did not require my transfer. I still hate it every day. Adulthood contains several of those. You could have warned me. I tried. You called it negativity. Fair. Careful with that word. He laughed. Last Thanksgiving, 9 years after the family stewardship plan, Elaine and I hosted 19 people. Owen and Brooke, Megan and Tyler, our grandchildren, Paul and his wife, Nina No, our longtime friends, the Mitchells and several neighbors whose children lived out of state. The Chevelle remained in the garage beneath its cover. No one brought financial documents. No place cards separated people by status. Megan took photographs but asked before posting. One picture showed me carving turkey while Owen reached for a roll and Elaine laughed at something Ellie had said. Caption: Grateful for the people who stayed long enough to learn new ways to love one another. She showed me the caption before posting. Too dramatic? A little. Accurate? Mostly. Can I post? Yes. During dessert, Mason asked who would inherit the Chevelle. The room became quiet for half a second before everyone laughed. You stepped right into family history, Owen said. Mason looked confused. What? I answered. The car will be sold eventually unless someone purchases it from the estate at a fair price. Why not leave it to me? Because 7 people in this room may believe they have a meaningful connection to it. I'm the only one who can drive stick. Currently, Ellie said, I'll learn. Elaine shook her head. Your grandfather will be buried in that car before any of you agree. Do not give him ideas, Megan said. The conversation remained light because no one believed the answer determined love. That was the change. After dinner, Owen joined me in the garage. We removed the cover so Mason could show a friend. Owen stood beside the car. Do you know what I remember most about that first intervention? He asked. Your poor financial judgment? I remember saying you might leave us nothing. Yes. I think I was scared that if there wasn't money, I wouldn't know what your life had meant. I looked at him. Why? Because money was the evidence. College, house, emergencies. You didn't talk much. I should have. I should have asked. Both. He touched the hood lightly. What do you want your life to mean? That I loved your mother. That I tried. That I corrected some mistakes before time ran out. That I drove this car enough to annoy the neighbors. Anything about us? That I stopped confusing making your life easy with helping you become capable. He nodded. I hated you for that. I know. I needed it. I know. Don't look so satisfied. I waited years for that sentence. There it is. We laughed. My children were never evil. They were entitled, frightened, immature, and shaped by a system Elaine and I helped create. That does not make their first reaction harmless. They looked at something that brought me joy and saw money leaving their future. They spoke as though my lifetime of work existed partly in escrow for them. Their entitlement deserved a boundary. My responsibility for encouraging dependence deserved acknowledgement. Both truths had to remain in the story. Revenge alone would have been easier. Cancel everything, cut them from the will, drive away smiling. But destroying relationships would not have corrected the deeper problem. Continuing support would not have corrected it either. The harder path was remaining emotionally available while becoming financially unavailable. I attended birthdays without paying every bill. I listened to fear without solving it. I allowed my children to be angry without purchasing peace. They were required to decide whether they wanted a father or a financial system. I was required to become a father who could offer attention, apology, and time instead of reaching for the checkbook whenever emotion became uncomfortable. Self-worth did not mean proving I could spend more than my children approved. It meant recognizing that my right to live was not created by how much money remained after I died. A parent's life is not the waiting room before inheritance. Retirement is not the period when adult children become unofficial shareholders. Money earned through decades of labor may become a gift, an inheritance, a scholarship, a trip, a medical reserve, a classic car, or nothing more than security. The decision belongs first to the person whose life produced it. Adult children may worry, they may advise, they may ask whether a purchase is safe, but concern becomes entitlement the moment they describe a parent's enjoyment as theft from their future. My Chevelle did not take anything from Owen or Megan. It revealed they had already counted something that was never theirs. The same was true of the 37 payments. Stopping them felt like taking, because dependency had disguised itself as normal income. No one enjoys discovering that comfort was borrowed. That discomfort did not make the truth cruel. I once believed a good father absorbed every problem he could afford to absorb. Now I believe a good father also recognizes when rescuing has begun stealing adulthood from the person he wants to protect. Owen was capable of supporting his family. Megan was capable of designing a wedding within reality. Elaine was capable of tolerating her children's disappointment. I was capable of surviving the silence after saying no. None of us learned those things while my money prevented the test. The car still sits in my garage. I am 78 now. I drive it less often because my knees dislike the low seat, but every spring I take it to the first car show of the season. Elaine still ties a scarf around her hair when we drive outside town. The grandchildren argue about who gets the front seat. Owen complains about the fuel economy. Megan photographs the green paint in evening light. Nobody asks what the car cost anymore. The price stopped being the story once everyone understood the life attached to it. Someday, it will belong to someone else. That is true of the house, investments, furniture, photographs, and every object we spend adulthood defending. What remains longer is the shape of the relationships we built around those things. Did money create closeness or replace it? Did generosity produce gratitude or entitlement? Did boundaries arrive early enough to teach, or only after resentment made them sharp? Did we let people change without pretending the harm never happened? My children did change. So did I. The inheritance is smaller than they once imagined and healthier than the dependency they expected. The relationships are less financially comfortable and more emotionally honest. I bought one extravagant thing after 45 years of waiting. It did not destroy my family. It forced us to discover whether a family remained when my money stopped doing all the work. So here is the question I would ask anyone listening, because people still disagree about whether I taught my children responsibility or punished them for one cruel conversation. If you had quietly spent nearly $1.5 million supporting your adult children, and the first time you bought something expensive for yourself, they accused you of wasting their inheritance, but later admitted their entitlement, built independent lives, and repaired the relationship, would you restore their original inheritance as proof of forgiveness? Or would keeping most of the money outside the family be the only boundary strong enough to ensure the lesson never had to be taught again?